In Revelation 13 we are shown two beasts. The first beast has various characteristics which show us who it represents. You will notice that in verse 2 it says the dragon gave this beast its power, seat and great authority. But who is the dragon? If you read Revelation 12 you will see it represents Satan. But the dragon also represents something else. What does a beast represent in Bible prophecy? Daniel 7:23 tells us a beast in prophecy represents a kingdom. So which kingdom could the dragon also represent? Well, in Revelation 12:4 it says that the dragon would try to kill Jesus when he was to be born on earth. And which kingdom did Satan use to try to kill Jesus when he was born? Rome. So the dragon also represents Rome. This means the beast of Revelation 13, the first beast, received its seat from the Roman Empire. Interestingly, this first beast of Revelation 13 matches the little horn of Daniel 7 also. It rises up in a multinational area. It speaks blasphemies against God. It reigns for 1260 prophetic years, and it persecutes and kills God's people during this 1260-year reign. These characteristics matches the little horn of Daniel 7 and the first beast of Revelation 13. And where did the little horn come from? It came up from the fourth beast of Daniel 7, which was the Roman Empire. So which kingdom did the Roman Empire give its seat to, which Revelation 13 confirms? And which kingdom fulfills these characteristics? The kingdom of the papacy, the papal church of Rome based in Vatican City, which is its own nation. So the first beast of Revelation 13 is the papacy. What about the second beast of Revelation 13? Well, this beast rises up out of the earth, which is the complete opposite of the first beast, which arose from a multinational area representing Europe. So this earth beast was to rise up from a sparsely populated area, a wilderness, completely separated from Europe. This beast nation was also to rise to power after the 1260-year reign of the papal church. In 1798, the papacy received its mortal wound, as Revelation 13 calls it. So the earth beast would be a nation that is rising to power around this time. And Revelation 13 calls this nation a lamb-like nation, which is a representation of Christ. But this nation would later speak like a dragon. It would speak like Satan and the Roman Empire. Not only that, this second beast nation would end up causing the whole world to take the mark of the beast. Now, what do you need to have to be able to cause the whole world to do something? You need financial control and vast military control over the world. Now there is only one nation on earth that comes even close to matching the second beast of Revelation 13, and that is America. So the two beasts of Revelation 13 are the papacy and America. But there is something else. In verse 14 of Revelation 13, it says that America would tell the people to make an image to the first beast. So America is to form an image of the papacy in the United States. And what is the Papal Church of Rome? It is a church-state union, with the church telling the state what to do. Friends, prophecy is fulfilling fast, and we now have an uprising in America from evangelicals and Catholics to take control of America. And Donald Trump has united with these evangelicals and Catholic leaders to bring about changes in America. Just listen to this.
Knock the crap out of him, would you? Seriously. Just knock the hell. I promise you, I will pay for the legal fees, I promise. In the good old days, this doesn't happen because they used to treat them very, very rough. And when they protested once, you know, they would not do it again so easily.
The protest is over.
So the protest has been over for 15 years. And I get a bit cheeky here because I challenge my Protestant pastor friends. If there is no more protest, how can there be a Protestant church? Maybe now we're all Catholics again.
We can also agree on the need to stand up to anti-Catholic bias.
That's the man that I believe is going to give America a last-minute reprieve. And if you're not going to vote, you should be ashamed of yourself.
You're going to be held seriously to account by God if you don't vote.
Stay strong, find new voters, get them to the polls. Like I said, and I'll continue to say, it is pitchfork and torches time in America.
What time is it? Pitchfork and torches time in America? My, have we forgotten our history. Many are thankful, apparently, that the lesser evil, Donald, was chosen as their king. Lesser evil is still evil, my dearest brothers and sisters. Perhaps like the prideful Nebuchadnezzar, this man may be used by God. We can pray for this. However, also, please remember that the Bible tells us that the stubborn Pharaoh of ancient Egypt was also used by God, according to Romans 9:17. His end was not as good as Nebuchadnezzar's, but yet God's name was declared through him. Now, before I come back to Trump, let me first make some things clear about the papacy, a power that is very familiar with torches and pitchforks and has been guilty of many atrocities during the Dark Ages, of which we seem to have forgotten. And the way she did this was through the use of state power. Let's quickly examine the beast in Revelation 12 and 13 and see where and how Donald Trump fits into these prophecies. In Revelation 12, we have a dragon. We read of it in Revelation 12:3. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his heads. What do the 7 crowns represent? The crowns are important to notice. This is a symbol of imperial or pagan Rome before the papacy is given its power. Rome was a republic until the republic fell, and in its place was supplied an imperial tyranny of kingdoms. From 508 to 538, 3 kingdoms were uprooted by the papacy using kingly power, and the papacy was given its power from the emperor when the Ostrogoths were uprooted in 538 AD. A decree was implemented in 538 AD called the Justinian Code. In this decree, we read the following: "The code of our Lord, the most sacred Emperor Justinian, concerning the most exalted Trinity and the Catholic faith, and providing that no one shall dare to publicly oppose them." This was the introduction to the code. In the code, the state was to enforce the Catholic faith by law, and force and persecution was to be used against those who did not accept the state faith.
Would you allow U.S. interrogators to waterboard terrorist prisoners in order to extract information?
Absolutely. Then they asked the question to me, well, what would you do? I said, I'd prove it immediately, but I'd make it also much worse. They said, what do you mean? I said, I'd do much worse. And don't tell me it doesn't work. Torture works, okay, folks? Torture, you know, I have these guys. Torture doesn't work. Believe me, it works, okay? And waterboarding is your minor form. Some people say it's not actually torture. Let's assume it is. But they asked me the question, what do you think of waterboarding? Absolutely fine. But we should go much stronger than waterboarding. That's the way I feel. We should go much stronger. We have to be very strong, and we have to be very vigilant, and we have to be very tough. Waterboarding is fine, but it's not nearly tough enough, okay?
This was the law of the land until 1798 AD. 1260 years later, when that power was removed by Napoleon under General Berthier, who captured the Pope and declared the monarchy to have ended. And the power exercised by the papacy during this time was responsible for over 50 million martyrs. Some say even up to 150 million martyrs. This tyrannical power is written of in Revelation 13, the next chapter. the full power of not just 7 crowns as imperial Rome, but with the additional 3 horns the first beast of Revelation 13 uprooted, the papacy is represented as having 10 crowns and is being given its power from imperial Rome or from the dragon. Revelation 13, 1 and 2. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power, and his seat, and great authority. This church and state power that was given by the dragon continued for 42 months. We read in verse 5 of the same chapter, and there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. The 42 months is also referred to as 1260 days in prophecy, and the Bible tells us that we are to have a day for a year in prophecy, Ezekiel 4 verse 6. So therefore, this period of 42 months or 1260 days is actually 1260 years, which span the time from 538 AD to 1798 AD. We are told that when the power was taken from the papacy, that this was called a deadly wound, Revelation 13 verse 3. And I saw one of its heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. And it certainly did. This deadly wound in 1798, the capture of the Pope, was also written about in verse 10 of the same chapter. It says, "He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints." The Pope being led into captivity was the fulfillment of this, the sword being the use of force. And right around 1798, when the Pope goes into captivity, we see in the next verse another beast rising up out of the earth. Revelation 13 verse 11. "And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon." This beast comes up with only 2 horns, but unlike the other beast, it has no crowns. The crowns symbolize royal power. The reason being that there are no crowns was that they had just declared independence from King George of Britain in 1776. They were now free from royal oppression and religious persecution, and now, instead of declaring the United States to be a monarchy and crowning George Washington the king, they chose instead a republic. No kings, no crowns. America is the beast represented in this prophecy, which was very lamb-like when it came up. But we must note that this beast would eventually speak like a dragon. In the next verse, we read the following, Revelation 13:12. "And he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, and causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed." The power of the first beast is to be exercised. The power of church and state that was exercised during the Dark Ages is to be exercised in America. The deadly wound of the papacy would also be healed. It is interesting that America would speak like a dragon. The Bible tells us that out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaketh, Mark 12:34. Washington, D.C. is considered to be the heart of the nation. The Congress of the United States was considered to be a Protestant government, and the Constitution, especially the First Amendment, were what made this government Protestant. James Madison, known as the father of the Constitution, who was also the 4th president of the United States, said this, "The purpose of separation of church and state is to keep forever from these shores the ceaseless strife that has soaked the soil of Europe in blood for centuries." The First Amendment was specifically placed in the Constitution by men like Madison. But on September 24th last year, right out of the heart of the beast, the papacy was speaking. And interestingly, he said that we need to heal open wounds.
We must be especially attentive to every type of fundamentalism, whether religious or of any other kind. The contemporary world, with its open wounds, which affect so many of our brothers and sisters.
Now it's time for America to bind the wounds of division. Have to get together.
Demands that we confront every form of polarization which would divide it into these two camps.
Prophetic, is it not? Stop extremism, stop fundamentalism, those Bible-believing Christians. Is this how the wound is healed, using state power maybe? On September 25th, the very next day, the papacy was in New York addressing the power-grabbing United Nations, and the power being given back to them is incredible. And I've documented this in other videos already, such as the videos about getting out of the cities that no man might buy or sell. Regarding America, the second beast, we read further in Revelation 13 that it would make an image of the papacy, or a copy. Something very similar to what happened during the Dark Ages, giving power back to the church. Verse 15 of Revelation 13 reads thus, "He had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed." This is coming down to a worship issue. The state power giving power back to the church, similar to Justinian transferring power to the papacy in 538 AD. We will see this duplicated in America, a copy or image of the first beast. Hillary does not fit the bill that would fulfill this prophecy. However, Donald Trump does.
You're the best. You're going to be the greatest leader. You're going to be. I want to endorse you. I'm endorsing you. But I'm not allowed to do it publicly, because if I do it publicly, I may lose for the church the tax-exempt status. So they're really being silenced, and we can't let that happen. We can't let that happen. I don't care about the endorsement. They're really being silenced. We can't let that happen. We're not going to let it happen. And we're going to get that thing repealed. And think of the power we have over the Democrats, over the Republicans. I mean, the power is incredible.
Power like the papacy had to continue for 42 months. Power like the power given by the dragon to the papacy. Power to give life to the image of the papacy. And the people that will form this image are none other than the evangelical, once Protestant Christians. While the evangelicals are having meetings such as Together 2016, Trump is behind their banding together to form a stronger union and gaining the power of the state. And he is saying he is the one who wants to give them the power. I understand that the relations between Trump and the Pope have been somewhat rocky. The Pope has said that Trump isn't a Christian because he wants to build a wall between Mexico and the United States. But these wounds will be healed. On September 22nd, what does Trump do? Trump names 34 Catholic advisors. Do you think maybe he's working at smoothing things out? And only recently at a Jesuit-sponsored dinner, after the final debate between him and Hillary, Trump said the following.
We can also agree on the need to stand up to anti-Catholic bias.
So we need not be deceived as to what this means. Are you one of those who might believe the papacy fits into the end-time prophecy? Do you have some of those anti-Catholic beliefs that Trump is talking about? Well, then he's speaking against you. Don't be deceived. They want to unite.
We've got to be very strong, very, very smart, and we've got to come together, not only as a nation, but as a world community. Thank you very much. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Catholics are an important part of the American story. America has been strengthened by hardworking Catholics. From New York to California, the Catholic story is truly unique, and it's a great story. From marching for civil rights to educating millions of children, serving the poor, and helping define the pro-life movement, clergy and lay Catholics across the country have made countless contributions to the American success and the American success story. Washington politicians have been hostile to the church. They have been hostile to Catholics. They have been hostile to the members of Catholicism. My administration will stand side by side with the American Catholics to promote the values we all share as Christians and Americans. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. We will make America great again.
But furthermore, Trump has a host of other Christian advisors among the evangelicals, starting with Kenneth Copeland.
You're going to be held seriously to account by God if you don't vote And you're going to find that out before this broadcast is over. You're going to be guilty of murder. You're going to be guilty of an abomination of God.
In 2014, a meeting was scheduled by Kenneth Copeland to meet with Bishop Tony Palmer. They formerly worked together, and Palmer was already friends with Pope Francis before Francis became Pope. So they scheduled this meeting to put aside differences and to unite the charismatics with the Catholic Church. Worldwide, there are 1.2 billion Catholics and approximately 500 million charismatics. This in total is 1/4 of the world's population. In these two movements together, that is 5 times the amount of people that live in the United States. So this event was nothing short of a major event.
Yeah. Whoa. I tell you, I'm telling you right now, heaven is thrilled over this.
The message was that the Lutherans had agreed to sign a document in 1999 that they could agree with the papacy that faith saved us unto good works. And so the conclusion was that this was what the protest centered around. And finally, that the protest was over since signing this document.
So the protest has been over for 15 years. And I get a bit cheeky here because I challenge my Protestant pastor friends. If there is no more protest, how can there be a Protestant church? Maybe now we're all Catholics again.
I think they missed what the protest was truly over. Force, persecution, millions of martyrs. The protest was about the blood that was spilled during the Dark Ages by the church and state-controlled papacy. But Palmer released another video only a couple weeks later, which labeled those who did not accept that the protest was over as spiritual racists.
We may be living officially in a post-Protestant era, but many Christians today continue to suffer from spiritual racism.
Copeland continued this spiritual racism rhetoric himself and was almost enraged at those who didn't agree.
Now, somebody said, well, is Copeland turning Catholic? No. They asked Pope Francis, do you think these people should convert? And he shouted, no! That would be wrong. We're coming together in the unity of our faith, not the unity of our religions. Man. Hallelujah. Oh, I'm telling you, folks, this is just absolutely huge. And I'll tell you why. The spirit of division is behind all racism.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Racism is not just skin color or ethnic background. That's right. Let me give you this statement, because I've got a number of things here to show you. And if I get turned loose on this, man. The devil takes a difference, magnifies it in hate, and divides the house. And a house divided against itself cannot stand.
Tony Palmer further continued his attack on Protestants, or spiritual racists as he calls them, by saying that in order to deal with these heretics or racists, we need to abolish the law that empowers them.
The first step in dealing with spiritual racism is to abolish the law which empowers it.
Now, what law gives you a right to protest the papacy and her dirty deeds? How about the First Amendment? Amendment 1 of the Constitution of the United States. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people to peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. This law has been a thorn in the side of the papacy since the day it was made. It gives you the right to peaceably assemble, to petition the government, and the right to protest.
In the good old days, this doesn't happen because they used to treat them very, very rough. And when they protested once, they would not do it again so easily.
Pope Francis has not just been trying to unite the state power, but also been making huge rounds and trying to unite all the religions into a one-world religion.
La mayor parte de los habitantes del planeta se declaran creyentes. Esto debería provocar un diálogo entre las religiones. No debemos dejar de orar por él y colaborar con quienes piensan distinto.
Confío en Buda.
Creo en Dios.
Creo en Jesucristo.
Creo en Dios, Alá.
Muchos piensan distinto, sienten distinto, buscan a Dios o encuentran a Dios de diversa manera. En esta multitud, en este abanico de religiones, hay una sola certeza que tenemos para todos. Todos somos hijos de Dios.
Earlier this year, in the heart of the nation, Washington, D.C., an event called Together 2016 happened, which called 1 million Christians to gather in Washington, D.C., the biggest Christian gathering in American history. This event was orchestrated by Nick Hall, and the papacy was a headliner at this event.
And we've been divided. We got this movement here, and this denomination here, and that group here. And so on July 16th, we're going to see all of these waves collide. Catholics and Lutherans and evangelicals and charismatics literally rallying across the nation saying, you know what? We may not say the same things, but we're on the same team. We're lifting up Jesus, and we're going to saturate this nation. Man, that could change the world.
Another event was called by many of these evangelicals only a few months later in September of this year, which was called The Gathering. On the About page of their website, we are told the purpose of these evangelicals uniting. We read the following: the church must again become the conscience of the government. Through its national solemn assembly, it should clearly and respectfully call political leadership to God's principles of government. Yes, this is their goal, to unite all religions and to become the conscience of the government, to control the state power, just as happened during the Dark Ages with the papacy. They are becoming intolerant to those who uphold the Word of God.
At a time when others are trying to divide us along lines of religion or sect, we have to reaffirm that most fundamental of truths. We are all God's children. We're all born equal with inherent dignity. We have to understand, an attack on one faith is an attack on all our faiths.
Todos somos hijos de Dios.
The image of the beast is coming in the US, and the majority of professed Christians are falling for Satan's deception in so-called taking control of America. But in doing this, they will end up forming the image of the papacy in America, a church-state union that will end up usurping the power of God and enforcing the mark of the beast upon the world, which will be the enforced Sunday law, Rome's and Satan's false Sabbath,